You've built a podcast, you've got listeners, but something's just not quite right. The name doesn't fit anymore, or your topic has evolved, or maybe there's another show with the same title and it's causing trouble for you, or maybe you're just ready for a fresh start. But before you hit that rename button, let's talk, because rebranding your podcast the wrong way, well, that could tank your audience, confuse your listeners, and even land you in legal trouble. So let's make sure you're doing things right. Hey there, it's Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, and this is Legit Podcast Pro, where I help you build a podcast business that's not only profitable, but protected. And today we're talking about rebranding your podcast, when it makes sense, how to do it smoothly, and what legal traps you'll want to avoid along the way. So let's start here. Do you actually need to rebrand? Sometimes the answer is no. If your show has built a loyal following and the name still works, even if your format or content has evolved a little, well, changing the name might do more harm than good. But there are certain situations where a rebrand makes total sense. Your focus has shifted, or maybe you started out talking about general wellness and now you're diving into mental health for dads or something like that. You're speaking to a new or different audience you used to target creatives broadly. Maybe now you're zeroing in on filmmakers only. Maybe your name is confusing or misleading, like a podcast called Startup Stories, but now you're really covering content marketing. You're merging two shows, pivoting your business, or launching a new product behind the podcast. If your content branding isn't serving your goals, your message, or your monetization strategy anymore, well, then a rebrand might be the smart move. So let's start off talking about one of the most urgent reasons that you might need to rebrand. That's that someone else is already using the same title or a very similar podcast name. And they've either been around longer, or they have a registered trademark, or they've sent you a cease and desist letter, or all of the above. And this is more than just a branding issue, it is a legal issue. And here's what can trigger that. Maybe you spot this other podcast with your same name and they launched first, so you get a cease and desist letter. Or you apply to register your name and it's denied because of a conflicting trademark. Sad to say, I've seen this often enough in my practice where an established podcaster comes along and realizes that someone else more established is in the way. Or it happens the other way around. Also, I represent folks who've got a long-standing brand for their show, and they want me to help stop the others from continuing and causing confusion. Or, when your listeners are confusing your show with someone else's, that's not good for either show. And if any of these things are happening, well, that's a red flag that your podcast title might be trademark infringement. Even if you didn't mean to, even if you didn't know, it can be a real problem. Now, if you get a cease and desist letter showing up at your door, do take it seriously. Even if the other podcaster hasn't registered a trademark, well, you might still have some common law rights. They might still have some common law rights as well. And if they've been using the name longer than you, especially if they have a bigger presence or bigger audience, well, then my advice is often going to be it's time to make a change and we try to negotiate a workaround or a work through. The worst move you can make is to ignore or delay responding. So, what I recommend is that you consult with someone like me, talk to a lawyer who understands this stuff. Stop using the name on new episodes till you've made an assessment of the risk. And, you want that lawyer who's someone who really knows podcasting and trademark law. And then be prepared to rebrand if their claim is stronger than yours. It's frustrating, yes, absolutely. But the longer you wait, well, the harder and more expensive it becomes to fix. So be proactive. Even if you haven't gotten a legal notice, but you discover another podcast with a similar name, that's your cue to at least start thinking about this and maybe take some action. So look at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, other directories, check the US trademark database, Google the title and see what else comes up. Be proactive about rebranding because this can help you to avoid these legal disputes and big expenses. It'll help you protect your reputation. It'll help you build something that's uniquely yours. And it's always great. You can look at it as an opportunity. If you discover one of these issues, you can look at it as a chance to pivot, rebrand, or refresh things a little bit. You know, a client of mine launched a show not long ago, something like the Growth Lab or something. And it turns out a company backed podcast with the same name had already registered a trademark. So they sent a cease and desist letter. My client hadn't searched the trademark database before launching. So, well, we had to pivot. It was the right thing to do. She rebranded to a unique and protectable name, filed for her own trademark, and used that transition as a way to refresh the visuals and the messaging and everything else about the show. And guess what? It actually boosted her downloads, positioned her better in her niche. Sometimes the obstacle becomes the opportunity. So here is, if you're going to rebrand, here's the right way to do it. And it's a 7-step strategy. So first off, audit what's changing. Are you just changing the title, or are you also shifting the tone, the audience, the content, the artwork? It'll affect how you go about things. Step 2 is do a full trademark clearance search on the new name that you're adopting. Don't just rely on Google or the podcast apps and things like that. Check with the USPTO.gov database. And better yet, talk to a trademark lawyer about a real trademark search. These are much more comprehensive than what you can do yourself online. And, for a few $100s, it'll give you a kind of peace of mind about the title you're selecting. Now, before you start creating new assets, buy the domain. Get the matching social handles. Design your artwork and logo. Update your podcast intro and outro. That way you've got everything lined up. And then before you launch the show or announce the new name, well, that's a good time to file a trademark application. You can file on the basis of an intent to use the brand. If you know that there's nobody else out there and you're planning to be up and running soon, file on that intent to use basis. It's easy enough to change it over. If you launch the new titled show quickly, you can file the application and then turn around and convert it to a use-based application. The Trademark Office won't allow a registration to be finalized until it's in use in commerce, but that's just a matter of having a couple of episodes in the can and published. So, but this way, by registering early, you can lock in those rights and make sure that you're going to be on steady ground going forward. Next up, you've got to communicate how you're changing things to the audience. Don't just ghost them. Let them know what's going on. Tell them why. Reassure them that the content they love is still there. It's just better aligned with your vision. And you're breaking up some of those incongruities that sometimes happen when your brand is a little off kilter with what you're doing anymore. So use transitional branding as another step. Say formerly known as and the old name for a few episodes. Now you're going to want to, if you're under a cease and desist order, you're going to want to make sure you negotiate how you do that with the other side, so you're not continuing to rub salt in their wounds and those kinds of things. But this is the kind of thing that will give continuity and help your listeners stay with you and continue to find you after the title of the show has changed. And finally, be consistent in your updating of things. Your website, email footers, show notes, directories. Make sure the branding is aligned from top to bottom, left to right, inside and out. And here's a bonus tip. Rebranding is also a great time to launch some new offers, or lead magnets, or pitch some sponsors. Maybe relaunch using a PR push. Refine your monetization plan. And, inside my Easy Legal for Podcasters program, I go even deeper into all this. There's an entire section on pivots and rebrands and templates and tools to guide the process. You can get a sneak peek of the Easy Legal for Podcasters program. I have a free sample lesson available. It's at gordonfiremark.com/level-up. That gives you an idea of what we teach in the program. So before you make any name change, get my free trademark registration guide for creators. It shows you how to search for conflicts and protect your podcast before someone else tries to. You can grab it right now at podcasttrademark.com. All right, so rebranding can be a bold and exciting move, but you need to do it with a high degree of care. Do your research, protect your rights, and bring your audience along for the ride. You don't want to lose them. You want to nurture them, right? So that's the strategy. And that's it for this episode of Legit Podcast Pro. Hope you found this helpful. And if you did, please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, let other folks know that we're doing this here. All right, I'm Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, helping you build a podcast business that's not just powerful, but protected. And I'll be back next week with another episode of Legit Podcast Pro. Have a great one.